A new report in the New York Post finds a record number of NYPD officers resigning this year, with more than 200 officers already tapping out in the first 2 months of this year. Fox 5's Ashley Rodriguez asked the mayor about the exodus.
Public safety is a prerequisite to our prosperity.
Yet public safety's first line of defense in the city, its police officers, are resigning at a record level in 2023, according to a new report from the New York Post, which found 239 officers quit this year, a 117% increase compared to the same period over the last 2 years, the highest number of resignations since 2007. Last year, the NYPD saw just over 3,700 officers retire, the most since 9/11.
We have a law enforcement crisis in this city, and in this country, and it's serious.
Several months later,
workers making it known that they are not happy with the mayor's budget cuts. No department was spared, not even the NYPD, which will now have the lowest number of employees in decades.
Fox 5's Antoine Lewis joins us now in the studio with a look at those cuts and which are the most upsetting. Antoine.
It's Natasha, police, fire department of sanitation, even library services. So it just depends upon the person. The mayor warned in advance that the cuts were coming, and they're hurting a little bit more than most were expecting. A mix of frustrated New Yorkers and elected officials found common ground Friday, demonstrating inside of City Hall Park in protest of news coming out of City Hall.
During these tough times, we should not be balancing the budget on the backs of the poorest New Yorkers.
The Care Not Cuts rally was in direct response to the budget cuts announced by the Adams administration earlier this week. 5% across the board, totaling upwards of $4 billion, impacting every city agency, including public safety. To that end, the cuts will mean the NYPD having less than 30,000 employees for the first time in decades, and the next 5 classes of new officers would be postponed.
All right, guys, so I got to tell you, I think that probably 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, you will have academics, hopefully not woke ones, study the downfall of major liberal cities, okay? Once great American cities like San Francisco, Chicago, New York, they're all falling off of a cliff. They're turning into third world countries under the leadership of the Democrat Party. And in particular, we want to focus on New York City today, that, in my opinion, is on a one-way trip to becoming Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. Except, again, it's going to be in New York City, as the illegal immigration crisis has forced New York City, due to their sanctuary city policies, to absorb a significant number of illegal immigrants after the red states got smart and started busing them to the liberal cities that claim that they want the illegal immigrants. Now, the illegal immigrants have taken up so many resources in these liberal cities that mayors like Eric Adams are issuing massive budget cuts to essential services, including the NYPD and schools and sanitation, to pay for the migrant crisis in their city.
Mayor Adams unveils his first round of budget cuts and has promised the cuts are painful.
The 5% cuts across the board will affect every agency, sanitation programs, and school budgets. But the most dramatic effect will be on public safety and the police department. CBS 2 political reporter Marcia Kramer here now to break this part down. Marcia.
Christina Maurice, Mayor Adams' former NYPD captain Eric Adams was elected in part on his promise to cut crime and make the streets safe again. So it's ironic that while every agency is taking a hit, these cuts will drop the number of cops patrolling the streets, now get this, to the lowest number since the 1990s.
This is the most painful exercise I've ever done in my professional life.
A frank admission from Mayor Adams as he hosted a town hall for older adults at the Hudson Guild. It came minutes after his budget director admitted in a briefing that the need for belt-tightening to deal with the $7 billion budget gap caused in part by the migrant crisis and by the reduction in federal aid for COVID would force the city to stop hiring cops for the foreseeable future. The budget director said the next 5 classes at the police academy will be canceled. The number of cops expected to drop from 33,541 to about 29,000 in the fiscal year that starts next July. He said that's the lowest number of cops since the 1990s. Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Hendry was stunned, saying the cuts could kill 30 years of public safety progress, telling CBS 2 in a statement, quote, "This is truly a disaster for every New Yorker who cares about safe streets. Cops are already stretched to our breaking point, and these cuts will return us to staffing levels we haven't seen since the crime epidemic of the 80s and 90s. We cannot go back there."
And people are not happy about that. And I can definitely understand why, because, again, it seems like under these policies of the Democrat Party that, again, these cities are on a one-way trip to becoming third world cities, right? And news like this that I'm about to talk about is evidence of what I am talking about. As NYPD cops leave force in alarming rate, over 2,500 had turned in their badges so far in 2023. So NYPD cops are literally resigning in mass amid these budget cuts that were issued by the mayor, Eric Adams. Now, you guys tell me, what do you think is going to be the end result, right? What do you guys think is going to be the end result when you have a city that already has a history of, at least some point, being a city with a lot of violent crime? Again, what do you guys think is going to be the end result of all of this, okay? When you start to defund public services like safety and sanitation. I'm just saying, right? New York City's on a one-way trip to a third world country. Again, this is what is happening under Democrats, okay? Again, as NYPD is resigning en masse, okay? They're done. They're saying, look, we're out. We don't want to work anymore. And again, part of the reason is because they're being overworked. They're being stretched out due to the budget cuts and all of the crime in the city. So without further ado, let's read about this. New York's finest continue to bolt from the job at an alarming rate, according to new data obtained by the Post. And some cops worry the exodus will only get worse because the city plans to cancel the next 5 police academy classes, shrinking the nation's largest police force to the smallest it's been in decades. A total of 2,516 NYPD cops have left so far this year, the 4th highest number in the past decade and 43% more than the 1,750 who hightailed it in 2018 before the pandemic and crime spikes hit the city, NYPD pension data show. The number of cops quitting before they reach the 20 years required to receive full pensions also skyrocketed from 509 in 2020 to 1,040 so far this year, an alarming 104% increase, the data shows. The years of departures and lack of replacements are now taking a toll, forcing the cops who remain on the job to work insane amount of forced overtime, Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Hendry said. Quote, the workload is a leading factor driving people away from the job, the union leader said. If the NYPD is going to survive these staffing reductions, it cannot just keep squeezing cops for more hours. Well, the problem is that nobody wants to be a cop anymore. And why would they want to be a cop, right? Look what happened to Derek Chauvin. Okay, see, this is why, when leftists celebrate what happened to Derek Chauvin, this is why I just shake my head. Because it's almost like these people don't understand cause and effect. They don't understand the fact that we currently live in a country where we have a policing shortage in all of these liberal cities. Nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Nobody wants to be a police officer anymore. Well, why is that? It's because you quite literally can be thrown in jail, smeared as a racist, and then stabbed in prison for doing your job, right? Which, I mean, again, this is why I said, that's nothing to celebrate. What's going to happen is you're literally sending a message to anybody who's thinking about being a police officer that, hey, this isn't the type of career, this isn't the line of duty that you want to get into because it's a thankless job, right? This is the result of Democrat rhetoric in regards to constant demonization of the police, saying that they're racist, moving to defund them, to lower their salaries. This is what happens. Again, see, this is why I try to tell people, man, I have to reiterate this. There are no such thing as solutions, only trade-offs in life. Yes, I understand that police can be corrupt, right? Yes, I understand that police can violate people's civil rights and liberties, and that happens, okay? However, I would rather live in a society where we have law and order, okay, and sufficient staffing of police that people want to be police officers, rather than to live in a society where nobody wants to be a police officer and you can't hire them, right? You can't hire enough of them. Because what happens in the alternative society is that more civil rights and liberties get violated, not by police, but by criminals, right? By criminals. I think it's one thing to deal with bad cops, right? And to try to lessen the chances of a cop violating somebody's rights. But let's keep it 100. That happens few and far between, right? But when you talk about crime, crime is widespread, okay? And it affects everybody, right? So again, when you talk about trade-offs, again, I would much rather have an over-police society than an under-police society, because an under-police society is a chaotic society. Again, evidenced by what's happening in these liberal cities, okay? The union has proposed a flexible schedule that would allow cops to work longer hours on fewer days. Incredibly, 21 cops walked away from the job earlier this year in just a 2-day period, February 20th and 21, to join the MTA, police sources said. Even former NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell stepped down in June amid a steady stream of New York's finest beating her to the punch. Officers typically work 20 years or more to collect their full pension, which can equate to 50% of their final average salary. One police officer who asked to remain anonymous for fear of retribution told the Post he plans to leave the job this summer when he hits 20 years. Quote, I keep in contact with the guys that I was in the police academy with, and we all have the same notion, he said of his 2004 class of 2,400. Quote, I think maybe 95% of us are planning on leaving. Again, this is going to be a disaster, right? This is going to be an absolute disaster, okay? It's going to be an absolute disaster. So again, with that being said, this is the last thing that New York City needs, considering how crime is out of control in this city, and you need more police officers. So again, what do you guys think is going to happen to this city? What state do you think that the city is going to be in 10 to 15 years? It's not going to be good. I'm telling you, it's not going to be good. Okay, it's going to be a third world city, right? I mean, it's going to be a place where nobody visits, right? Nobody's going to want to go because, again, it's just too dangerous. It's not worth it, right? It's not worth it, especially in the wintertime, by the way. I mean, in which, you know, it gets really, really cold. Again, it's not a place people want to go. And again, this is part of the reason why you have the mass exodus that is happening from these liberal cities and these liberal states, because these policies are a failure. They're a failure, right? And people run away from this type of stuff. They run away from this type of chaos and destruction, which again is exactly what's happening to New York City. And it's all because of Democrat policies. Biden opened up the borders, let the illegal migrants into the country. Now you have New York City, because of their sanctuary city policies that Democrats voted for, that Democrats implemented. Now they have to foot the bill for it. And now they have to cut goods and services that actual Americans and civilians need, okay, for just basic, decent law and order and living conditions. They have to cut that stuff, again, because of Democrat policies, okay? It's really that simple. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.